5:53 at News Radio 1067. Well, reporting the news, we can tell you, can be grim business. Ed Payne works for CNN here in Atlanta, but he's found an unusual way to take a break from writing about war and violent crimes and natural disasters. He writes children's books on the side. Our Ninette Sosa spoke with Ed Payne, the author of The Daily Rounds of a Hound and Molly and the Bully.
You go from news and death and destruction and writing news, and then you have children's books. How does that transition happen?
It's nothing I necessarily planned. It was all inspired by a dog that we adopted named Molly, and it was just the inspiration of what we experienced from adopting that dog, and it was a dog that we didn't realize was carrying stowaways, was pregnant. We ended up with 10 dogs instead of the one dog we intended to have. So it's that sort of thing, I guess, something that's much different than covering Syria and covering Al-Qaeda and covering the Pope or whatever the news of the day is, to writing essentially rhyming words with a children's story that may have a moral.
Where do you go to find your content?
My life, pretty much, or the lives of those around me. The first story in the series was really the story of this dog coming into our lives and how that changed our lives. The second story, Molly and the Bully, has to do with bullying and stereotyping, so that's a little bit more of today's news in the sense because there's a lot of discussion of that. It also comes partially from the experiences of my daughter who was bullied during middle school, and that helped bring that to my attention as well. So it's all of those things kind of in a blender that, brought it together.
I was going to ask you, do you find it a little bit therapeutic maybe?
I'm not sure if therapeutic is exactly it or not, but when you're writing a book, it's a totally different challenge. When you're doing a news story, you've got a certain set of facts, but your story is there, you're just trying to communicate it. Where when you're writing a book, it gives you a chance to maybe be a little bit more creative. In many cases, you're trying to convey a moral as well. You're maybe touching people in a way you didn't realize touches their heart some way that you couldn't have predicted, based on the basic story that you're telling.
And how many more of these do you see in this series, or do you go to a different, not a hound, I don't know if you go to a cow, I don't know.
That's a good question. I have some ideas for additional books, but I'm not there yet because when you're doing something independently, when you're self-publishing, it's up to you to get out there, to go to events, try to communicate with people, to tell your story and the story of your book. So where it will go for sure, we'll see where Molly takes us.
Well, Ed Payne is a CNN journalist and a children's book author. He was talking with our Ninette Sosa.